world is in chaos everywhere you turn. In the last week, Vladimir Putin has launched an unprovoked, naked war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. The reason he did this is because of his imperial ambitions to reincorporate Ukraine into the greater Russian Empire in his mind, but also because he perceived weakness and opportunity from the West and, regrettably, from President Biden. We saw last night the president congratulate himself on the diplomatic coalition he's put together to confront Vladimir Putin. That's akin to Neville Chamberlain celebrating the coalition he assembled against Germany after Germany invaded Poland. The whole point was to deter Vladimir Putin. That failed. Why did it fail? Because for the last year, the president has projected weakness and signaled to Vladimir Putin that he didn't have the nerve to counteract his ambitions. His first action in office was to give Vladimir Putin his #1 foreign policy priority, a no-strings-attached extension of a one-sided nuclear arms control treaty. Shortly after that, he gave Vladimir Putin his second foreign policy priority, again with no strings attached. He waived sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. We didn't really take stern measures for the Colonial pipeline hack from Russian-affiliated hackers. We rewarded Vladimir Putin with a high-stakes summit last summer. But it's not just foreign policy, it's also domestic policy here at home. As day follows night, Vladimir Putin gets emboldened and more aggressive when the price of oil is higher. And for the last year, the Biden administration has done everything they can to stifle the production of American oil and gas that would not only keep the price of gasoline lower for our citizens, keep the price of heating their home lower, it would also constrain Vladimir Putin by reducing the revenues he has for his war machine. But the Biden administration's war on oil and gas has in fact emboldened him. So much so that we are to this day still importing hundreds of thousands of barrels of Russian oil and petroleum products every day. Since Vladimir Putin launched this naked war of aggression last week, we have filled his coffers with millions and millions of American dollars to fund his aggression against the Ukrainian people. We still haven't taken the steps necessary to stop this. Sanctions on Russian oil and gas, to cut off those revenues, to bankrupt Vladimir Putin's war machine, but also to continue the pressure that those sanctions would impose to begin to once again pump more oil and gas here at home. If we really wanted to add the pressure to Vladimir Putin that oil and gas sanctions would put on him, we would unleash a flood of American oil and gas into the market and deprive Vladimir Putin of those revenues. But instead, on the very day, literally the very day last week, when Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, President Biden halted all new oil and gas leases on federal lands. Think about that. A ruthless dictator invades an innocent nation of 45 million souls, using oil and gas as a weapon against the West, who could come to the aid of that nation. And President Biden's action on that day was to halt all new oil and gas leases on federal lands. To the extent the president even talked about energy in his speech last night, he simply made pipe dream promises about green energy that maybe will come true in a decade or two, but will do nothing at the moment to deter Vladimir Putin, and in fact will continue to embolden him by highlighting the lack of seriousness to confront and undermine his aggression. In fact, the president only mentioned oil once last night in that entire speech, when he bragged about releasing 30 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which wouldn't fuel our country for even 2 days. What we need is not half measures. We need a sustained, reliable, and affordable flow of American energy. That's why I'm here to ask for unanimous consent for my bill ordering the Biden administration to start issuing new oil and gas leases for federal lands. It won't solve all of our problems, but it's an important and immediate step that we can take to start producing the American oil and gas that will undercut Vladimir Putin's war machine. President Biden's foolish energy policy couldn't have come at a worse time for Ukraine, but we can begin to end it right now by putting our American oil and gas workers back to work. I urge my colleagues to stand with Ukraine and to support the bill. It's really a choice between American energy or Russian energy. We can decide. And therefore, I ask for unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S 3731, which is at the desk. Further, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.